All right, live on Facebook, live on YouTube. Geweldig. Okay. I'm not really sure if I can be doing visuals. It's late and we're behind. Okay. So we're in the middle of a machlekes over here. Abaye and Rava. The Mishnah had said that you're barche from someone else's bar, but what if there isn't anything there and you're coming to do it first? Abaye says you could be soimech, you don't have to separate. Rava says no. Okay. Tashma, bottom view dynamite bays, marchikin as a gefes, we have to separate olive remnants, vesazevel, fertilizer, vesamelach, salt, vesasid, which is that lime? Like plastery stuff. Vesaslaim, coals, because shechaver gimel tfachim, oy sod besid, or vesod besid. And the Mishnah keeps emphasizing it's away from someone else's wall. Taima dika kaisel. So the reason is because there's a wall there. Like a kaisel seimach. Otherwise, you could do it. Sounds like a baye. Loi kileka kaisel nami loi samech. When there isn't a wall either, you also can't. Loi kileka kaisel nami loi samech. When there isn't a wall, when there's no wall, you also can't. So what's it tell? Why did it mention the wall? The point of the mission is that those things are difficult to walls. You have to distance planted seeds. Plowing. Three tvachim from a wall. Taima dika kaisel like a kaisel samech. Same thing. The reason you can't do it is because of a wall. If there isn't a wall, you could. Loi like a kaisel naimi le samech. If there isn't a wall, you also can't. Ve'ela my kamash malon. What's the chiddush? Hakamash malon. It's telling us metunta moisture is kash the kaisel difficult for a wall. Rashi metunta davarlach tashma. Another raya. This is our mishnah. Vesarei chayim. Millstones. Gimel min hashechev. Dal min harechev. Time to like a kaisel samach. The only problem is doing it because there's a wall. Like samach, even without a wall, maybe you can't. Like Rava, Velamak, Mashmalon, what's the chiddush? Mashmalon, the tiraya kash the kaisel. The vibrations are bad for a wall. So Rashi tiraya ituner belaz kamai titaria l'reisha belu trefes. Toshma v'satan shoshmin hakashin dal min hasafa, an outdoor oven. Taima dika kaisel like a kaisel samech. If there isn't a wall, you could. Like a kaisel naim samech. If there isn't a wall, you also can't. Ela my kamash balon. So what's the chiddush? Kamash balon dahav l'kasha l'kaisel. She said heat is bad for a wall. Finally, a raya from something which isn't the mission we just did. Toshma lo yiftach adam chanat shenach taimin. You can't open up a bakery. Michel Tzabain, or a dye place. Under someone else's storage house. Rashi says there's constantly a fire going there. Neuroblade Bay Planya, wink wink. There's Aliyah, an attic shaitzin but Tavua Vishemen. The Rashash takes that part out. And smoke is bad for them. And also not a cattle house. It's the smell. The problem is that there's already an existing storage house there. If there isn't one, you could do it. Which Gemara answers, Dira Shiny. When it's a place where someone's living, it's different. Dira shiny chanus, opening up a store of Refes Baka or a cattle pet, and dirasan shel adam hein. It's indoors in a person's where he's living. We're not going to say you can't do something in his own living place unless there's something actually there that's going to be damaged. The economy. And the Gemara says that's actually the economy to dira shiny, that indeed it would seem that that's the reason. The Tani Allah, the price that says, if the Refes Baka was there first, the cattle place there, it's okay. The Tani Allah says, Rashi dahi, but other, we're not going to say that by the things in our Mishnah. Fine. Tashma, I think we're just banging through the parak. You can't plant a tree next to a field. You have to be separated. You have to distance 4 amas. It's because of that's how much space the vineyard would need for a tractor to be going around it. Rashi, I'm getting a carmi men arba amis. Compares time again, but it's a carm. Shay Kharsh Makaram Ben Makarish. V'chem Shas Sabatzer. Bites in his own back. Shrach Land Makam Pony arba amis. Leitik on his egg glass. Nacharei Shah. Say Bekarka Chaverai. Taima. The Mishum Kedev is a carm. Allah Mishum Kedev is a carm. Sa Milch Vavgav. The Ika Shirash and the Kamazki. So making a diak. The problem is because you're actually going to end up invading his yard with machinery, but otherwise the underground roots aren't a problem, which is a raya to a baye that you can just set things up originally. Time of somebody said karim shumazika biyodayim alavachisam chvafal gab the sefishi spashtu shosh vezika besada ben lakim acharish ben lachafir asabar. So the Gemara answers hacha b'maskin on the mafsek tsunma tsunma sel chazav shay spashish shosh l'sham, that there is underground bedrock that would be in the way. Toshma, together being time, there's a fence between them. Everyone can do things as close as possible to the fence. And then your tractor is not going to be running over his stuff if he does stuff there because there's a wall there already blocking. Then they love on Kilayim, and Rashi's about warning. What if one of them is a wheat field? That's not a problem. Where the guy had 4 poles in the ground and stretched a vine on them. It says that's a strong raya that it's okay to be semech. Oh yeah, says the Gemara. If the roots on one side are ending up in the other guy's property, he can dig, the guy who's getting invaded can dig down to a depth of 3 tvachim to stop them from getting in the way of plowing. So this is the same brisa, and what on earth? How can you say that the reason why it's okay to plant the tree? The reason why it's not okay to plant the tree is because of Avodas HaKarim. Yeah, that's because there's rock in the middle. So how on earth in the Seifa are the roots coming through? What are they doing there? We're going to have to answer the brisa, I think, for Rava to say. No, if I care. Oh, yeah. We're saying the problem is right, this is a kash on Rava. Rava would be saying it's tsunma. We're saying, but what do you mean there's tsunma? It can't be that there's rock in between, or else how the roots get there at all in the Seifa. Hachi ka'amar v'lav tzunma. The shape is saying if there wasn't such a case, v'lav tzunma was in a te'asham shleikados mamek lehuzeh k'dei shelo yazikeyu kishiyazkinu hein. Okay. So if he loved sunma, we're saying the safe is that if there's a fence and not sunma, and the guy planted incorrectly, but you should rush of yaitz in the sechel chaveroi. We had answered bitsunma to the raya to by geder, and we're saying then how could the roots have gotten there? That's what the leket somewhere. The guy did it without rishos. Period. You got to keep a tree away from well 25 ames. Time bar like a bar samech. The reason is that there is a well. Without a well, you can't. So that was what they evaluated. Shesh Russian Imshachen, roots extend. They'll weaken the walls of this well. Again, from a bar, another right to Abaye and a Kasha and Rava, that the problem is because when there's a pit there. Like a Barnami like Samach, even without a pit, maybe you can. Nope. Maybe you can never do it, but we're saying this, we're speaking it out to explain that the problem is that roots can go up to 25 shirashim. What did and Eli Samach Eichim Mishkachas Lo. If the tree was there first, you can't cut it. Isn't that a clear right to Abaye that that you could do the tree beforehand? Because he did it bershus. Then Samach Malayakat Mali Bar Kadam Betanikites Mashna Ilan Kadam Betanalaykites. If according to Rava, you're not allowed to do it originally even without a bar. What does it mean Ilan Kadam? To which the Gemara answers, and the Papa said about something else, that it's talking about where the guy bought the land where he's going to be digging a bar, and originally the tree was planted b'rishus because it wasn't within 25 amos of someone else's property, and the owner of the tree sold the land to somebody else. Toshma, another ayah, keep away the soaking waters. No, they're soaking flax in. Mina yarek from veggies, vesakration, mina betzalin. Creation. Karti. What is Karti? She karsu seneinu. Is that leaks? Desecration, karti, forels. Mustard from bees. Taima dika yarak. Only reason it's a problem is because there's vegetables there already. Like a yarak samech. Otherwise, he could like a yarak nami like samech. Same answer as before. No, you can't do it even if there isn't. So what's the point? He's telling you what's difficult. What's difficult for what? Really? Is that going to work? Why do you see what this says at the end of this? Brisa. Just a Rashi, we skip like a yark nami. The samach like mashmon danach kashua hadadi. Rabbi Yosei mater b'chardo. Rabbi Yosei says it's okay by מפני שיכול אמר לי, עד שעתה אמר לי, הרחק חרדלך מן דברי, הרחק דברך מן חרדלי, שבית ואיכלס, לגלוגי חרדלי. And Yosef says, what do you mean? You're telling me I need to move my mustard away from your bees? Your bees are the ones coming to it. עד שעתה אוי מרחק אז חרדלך מן דברי, שעל המזק להרחק עצמי, הרחק עצמי דברייך מן חרדלי, שאף עתה נקרא מזק. You're the one who's banging over here and damaging things. So it's got to be that it's okay to start. Or else, how can he say... Well, let's see Rashi. De'elu how do you have such a setup happening that you have two things that are bothering each other? None of them should have been there in the first place. Amar, and this is Rav Papa said it. Amar Rav Papa b'leikeach. So the guy originally had it, one big property, and then sold it. And the other guy's doing stuff in it. B'leikeach achash asaseh misha b'sechsa deyu ezar sham chardol machar mechtas der la'achar b'leikeach zar sham yarek ayhem edvayrim. So I have mustard planted, and I sell half of the field immediately adjacent to that, and the guy sets up bees there. So how can the Chachamim say that you have to go away? Rashi says, if we're talking about where like guy bought the field and everything was hunky-dory at the beginning, then why is Rabbi Yosef only arguing by chardal and bees and not by the other cases? Omar Ravina Kasav Rabban Alamazik Lachik Asatzmai. Alamazik, it's up to the damager to get away. Even though what he did was originally fine, it was his field, but once he sold it to somebody else and now it's causing a problem, he would need to leave, and that's why in general asur lismech. That means you're saying that according to Rabbi Yosef, it's the one who's getting damaged to us. It's his problem. So why is he not also arguing on the Chachamim by things that aren't bees? Right now, sitting there, Rabbi Yosef, when he argues on the Chachamim, he also holds al hamazik leharchek, but he's saying to them, I get it by the case where one thing is damaging the other. It's a one-way street. But here it goes both ways, so you can't blame this guy and say alamazik laharchik. So right now we're saying that with Rav Papa Bilei Keach, and the Chum still say alamazik laharchik. Rabbi Yosef agrees with them. It was Bilei Keach, and Rabbi Yosef is only arguing on Dvarim because it's hezek both ways. For Rabbanan, the Chachamim hold Rashi al-Mazak Arkech Esatzmai Aval Pish Mitzchilas Bershus. For Chamhold Dvarim Chardolay Mazkilei that bees do not actually damage the mustard. If you're afraid that they're going to damage the actual seeds of mustard, It won't find them. But tarfa, and if it's the leaves that they nibble, that doesn't actually damage it because hadar pa'ari, it will again grow back. Peiroisav, I think it's the same thing. Frak the Gemara of a Rabbi Yossi al Mazik la'achlikas atzma. Rabbi Yossi holds it's up to the Mazik to get out of the way. But we have a Mishnah also coming up. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yossi holds it's okay to plant a tree in your own yard, even if eventually the roots are going to go. Well, fine. Rabbi Yossi holds it's up to the nizik to go away, and therefore really he ought to argue by things that aren't bees, like Mishra and was it creation? And guess what? We're saying he does. Why does he only argue with them on Dvarim? Because he's trying to get them to agree with him, and he's trying to work within their framework. He's talking to them in their language. According to me, the guy getting damaged is the guy who has to get away. I don't need to separate my Mishra from your vegetables or my creation from your B'tsalim. But according to you, that you don't want to hear that. That you say it's up to the damager to do it, to get away. Fine. I can hear it by the soaking flax water and vegetables. Because it's a one-way street, and the vegetables are not doing any damage to the flax. So therefore, even if he started Bershus, I can hear it. When it comes to mustard and bees, it's a two-way street. So at least agree with me there. For Rabbanan, the Chum argued, they don't think that's actually a damage. If it's the seeds, not going to find it. And if it's the leaves, it will grow back. I feel like the Gemara used a slightly different word over here. Here's mishkachasle, which is a term I'm more familiar with. Oh, we actually get Rashi on it. It's hidden in a stalk. Okay. And you can set up a laundering ditch. Right now we are on your Testament Aleph. Rav Nachman, the name of Rav Baravua says, that which you can't have, this laundering thing close to someone else's, bar, I would think. Let me just verify that. Yeah. It's only from the acrid, yucky laundering pit. Oh, I am wrong. Yes, it's the one that's more yucky, but it's not in motion, and therefore that's the one that only needs 3 tefachim. But the one that is actually getting scrubbed in water, because of its vigorous, the scrubbing is gonna make it penetrate more, and you have to be separate. You have to distance 4 amas. Not just that's penetrating the ground; it's the water splashing above ground. Tanya nami achi of a brayso also the vechas and dalat amas. That it's 4 amas. I've on to now, but our Mishnah said Gimel Tvachim Elash. I'm not going to Rav Nachman, so it must be like Rav Nachman. So there, Rav Nachman said something, and we said, we have a raya. Ve'ika drami lu mirmi. Another tradition, another way of saying it is Rav Nachman is actively coming to answer this problem. Tanan, and I wonder if you have a Mishnah which has the Rechsakayvs in Gimel Tvachim from a laundering pit, 3 Tvachim. I have a Tanya Arba Amais. You have a verse which says 4 Amais. Rav Nachman, Rav Baravua, like Asha Kamina Machamsin, Kamina Nadain. It depends which one it's from, and from the one that actually has the splashes coming out of it, you have to be separated 4 Amais, not just 3 Tvachim. Rav Chia Breit Rav Avia Matin Lo Behedia. Rav Chia Bar Avia doesn't just have this implied. He actually, in his tradition, actually says this. And it's very clear that's talking about that ditch. I will be right back to another. All right. And we are back. Let's see. It's already 1:40 a.m. here. The sun said, and you have to add this a plaster layer to keep things in. Iboilu, they wanted to know. They had a question. The sod b'sitnan, and you have to do it. Dilmar, maybe. Sod b'sitnan. Maybe the Mishnah is saying you can distance it 3 tvachim or do plaster. In which case, if there's plaster, you can do it right there. Which the Gemara says, Pshita divisad b'sitnan. It must be that you have to do both. Because if you have the option of doing one or the other, you should have said it all together. The beginning part and the middle of the Mishnah should have been combined. So if the middle of the Mishnah is an or plaster, if over there it's or Isad Besid, and that part was listed clearly separately from the first part of the Mishnah, that would imply the beginning of the Mishnah is you have to do both, and that's why it's not one big shebang bang. To which the Gemara is Madcha Dilma Mishum Deledami Hayzeka Hayzeka. Maybe both of them are Sod Besid. So why did the Mishnah combine them all? Because there are different categories of damage. Reisha, Ezeka, the Mitunda, the Reisha, the beginning of the Mishnah is talking about where the dampness is what's damaging. And Save Ezeka Dahava. And the second part of the Mishnah is because of heat. Tashma, if you have very crumbly rock, then you can dig your holes, but you have to separate 3 tvachim and do sid. Taima de Babi Yadayim. The reason why you have to do both is because it's so crumbly. That would imply that if it wasn't so crumbly, it would be optional. It would be Osad Besid. Maybe not. Maybe you have to do it no matter what. And the chiddush is that even Babi Yadayim only needs that much with Sod Besid. I would have thought to say the Babi Yadayim because it's so crumbly. You might need more than 3 tvachim. It's the same as everything else and only needs 3 tvachim and Sod Besid like everything else. Maybe. Bobby Dayim Mitzrech Leminka Leila Tanav Avagavdu Adin Lay Bobby Yadayim Machiknas Agefes, the olive stuff, Es Hazevel, fertilizer, Ves Hamelach salt, Ves Hasalaim, Ves Hasid, the Bach Eds, it's in the court of the Mishnah, Ves Hasalaim, coals, Tanano, some boring, Mesach Shabbos. What can you do Atmana in, and what can you not use on Shabbos? Right, going into Shabbos, having food inside of something, the general call is, it depends if it's Mosef Hevel or not. But Metaimnin, as Acham and Rashi says, B'Shabbos, anything which is on its own getting warmer is a problem to have food ensconced within it. Falls in first time, unless someone come to actually do it in coals, hot ash. which I think would come to actual bishul when you move it around. Ain time, then you cannot do atmana lebegefes, like our Mishnah, not with the olive remnants, fertilizer, plastic, or sand, bin lach and bin yavation, whether it's wet or dry. So, frek the Gemara, wait a minute, some of that was the same and some of it wasn't. Why here do we not mention sand as being a problem, but we did mention coals? Why didn't coals show up there? Why? Because it's be abnormal to be matman something in coals. That's odd, but okay. Abnormal is the basis for this. What? We only talk about normal things like keeping your stuff in like sheep shearings or combed purple wool things. Why? Because you're allowed to be timing food in shearings of sheep with and little tips. What's that mean? It doesn't mean little tips. It means because when it's more combed out, on a purple wool that's been combed, rags. Rashi says interesting. It sounds like it's lint. And they're considered muktzah. The point is that these are weird things, though. Frak the Gemara. So it's not just this is a bias kasha and abuse. It's not just about normal. I let the two inform each other. I mentioned here coals and also sand. We'll learn from Shabbos. Correct. If it's about one teaching about the other, so just say all of them in one place and then just do one in the other Mishnah, and then we learn it from the other. Rather, Rava said the reason why is it's not going to say coals there because that would damage the kettle. It would blacken it. No. It rusts it. The shotich tfei. The first Russian Rashi says it breaks it. Usually it means that it rusts it. And so you wouldn't do it. So Rava's answer is actually saying that it's okay to do it with sand by a bar because it's not has something hot in it that would kick off a cycle of heat. Frak the Gemara. Be'eshia says about our Mishnah, you can't do sand. That's talking about where it's wet. It's not on the list of things that are problem because they're hot. It's a list of things that are problem because they're wet. And he's talking about that kind of sand. Wet sand. So why didn't our Mishnah do sand and it would be wet one? It already said water. Otu me like Tani Amas Amayim, Tani Nevrechas Akivsin. Oh, okay, but we did several different types of water things. I mentioned a stream of water, also mentioned a washing ditch, or hole in the Nevrechas Akivsin, like Kavik Amas Amayim, Shamas Amayim. These are the answer. I mean, Rashi. Also, Elias, Shamay Lames, Abazuakavis, Pa'amim, Shemishtan, Nasachara. So, irrigation ditch is more permanent. That's what we're explaining. Hanud Tzricha, you're going to need each one. If we just said Amasamayim is a problem in irrigation ditch, because it's there permanently. That's why it's a problem. I might think that a laundering ditch is okay. It's not so bad. Just did the laundering thing, because it's staying in one place and therefore it's going to leak more. But water that's flowing, no, tzricha. Period. Let's at least get on to Amid Bays. Seeds and plowing. Frek the Gemara. Well, if you have to separate plowing, wouldn't that imply that you can't have seeds there? If you can't plow there, you can't plant. No, you're talking about planting by hand. It's like Rashi, even if you hadn't planted, Tana lemarchiken, but hand planting. Shazari blecharisha chayfer b'marvin imamik it just does a hole with a hoe, and that would be not a problem. And the seeds are what's the problem. Machareisha, you're saying you can't plow. Typically, Mishum Zra'im, if seeds are a problem, wouldn't you know that plowing is no good because that's why you're plowing? B'charish Leilonis is talking about where he's doing it, not for seeds, but for trees. Typically, Mishum Zra'im, Shistam Charsh and Seven Israel, Vaktan Israel, B'charish Leilonis, Shami Lonis, Miyamim Rabim, Balachish Tachteim, Lashbichan. The trees are pre existing, and he's just plowing for that. What about the water issue? If you have to be far away from someone else's wall, if you have to distance wet things from them, so of course you can't have seeds because you're going to have to water them. Tana be'Eretz Yisrael koi. The Tana was in Eretz Yisrael. T'chsiv, as it says right before Vahim Shemaya, limtara shomayim tishtem mayim, that it drinks from the waters of the heavens. So there is no extra irrigation going on. Correct the Gemara lememra. What? Seeds have roots that go out to the sides and it would damage someone else's wall? We have a Mishnah if someone is extending a grapevine and going underground and popping out the other side, popping up elsewhere. You can't plant wheat over the underground part of the vine unless you have 3 tvachim in the way. And we learn about that Mishnah of a it's okay to do it on the sides, so we don't say that the roots are spreading out to the sides. Amar Rabbi Chagav Shem Rabbi Yisai. B'Chagav Shem Rabbi Yisai says you're right. Roots don't go to the sides. So why are roots a problem? Gavin Yechidisha in Bizraim She'etzla Mishum Earbov the Ein Karen Bepachs Mechamish Kafanim Stein Gang Stein Bachas it's a zon of Elin Shalayina Kazarmina Gafen. It's not a vine, it's not a vineyard issue, it's just that you don't want the seed and the vine together. Mavrich Kamai Vaya Vrich Agmalim. Bent it over. No, so what's the problem? From within 3 tvachim away, they get the ground around it wet, Umalin afartichuach, and cause the ground to be wetter. Umesmoitet hakarka shetachas yisod hakaisel litzdaden, and it's drawing the water up. The roots go straight down, but it's still getting the area around it wet. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think we're going to stop here and pick up tomorrow with the rest of the text in the base and Daf Chaf. Next session is Barach. Shkaya.